6 months ago, you find a loaded gun and a bloody dressing gown hidden in your attic, but you don't turn them into the police. Why?
I don't like the police.
And naturally, you wanted to protect your new friends, the Wards, in the event that these things might implicate them in any way. But you seem to be eager to cooperate with the police when doing so might implicate a man whose business venture you oppose.
Objection.
Sustained. This witness is not on trial.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Thank you.
Mr. Schultz?
The state calls Mary Mae Ward.
Mary Mae Ward to the stand. Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please be seated.
Mrs. Ward, in your own words, would you please tell the jury what happened on the night that your son Bradley died?
He called me from Albany that afternoon wanting to see me. I could sense that something was wrong because it had been a grueling legislative session. He was pushing daycare, tax reform, school breakfast programs, and he was fighting racial hiring quotas for the new airport development.
In which Edward Quartermain was heavily invested.
And when I saw Bradley, later on, he was a shadow of himself. We sat on the porch drinking iced tea, and my son unloaded his soul. I had heard rumors about Elizabeth Jackson, how close they were, and how much he depended on her, but I knew nothing of Kylie Quinlan until then. Bradley told me he had spent the previous weekend with Jack Boland, Edward Quartermain, Lee Baldwin, and Frank Smith at the Quartermain house on Long Island at Jack Boland's request. He told me they wanted him to back off the tax bill and the opposition to the airport. They wanted him not to run for any office ever again, and in return, they would not go public with information about the relationships with Elizabeth Jackson and Kylie Quinlan.
And did your son agree?
He said he needed a few days to think it over, but he came to the conclusion that there was no acceptable solution. We talked until midnight, but I was the one that was filled with rage. He seemed resigned, empty, and I tried to put some fight back into him, but he was so tired. I could feel the ache in my own bones. So I left him there. He was stretched across the bed in his own room. And then I went to bed, but I didn't sleep. I lay there with so much rage for those that would try to destroy a good, decent man for greed and profit. I was angry.
But finally, you did fall asleep, and something woke you. What?
I wasn't sure at the time, but later I found out that it was a gunshot that killed my boy.
This is an artist's rendering of what you said you saw when you went down to your garden that night. Is it accurate?
Not really. There's so much you don't see. The smell of wet grass, warm blood growing cold. I knew he was dead before I touched him, before my fingers went into the wound. I held him, I sat there and I held my son for a long time, knowing that that was the last time I'd have him in my arms.
You thought he'd killed himself.
Yes.
So you buried him there in the rose garden to keep that secret.
Yes.
When did you learn that your son had actually been murdered?
When Luke and my grandson Justice found another bullet in the tree.
Thank you, Mrs. Ward. I apologize for asking you to revisit such painful memories. No further questions.
Mr. Stannis?
No questions at this time, Your Honor.
You may step down.
State calls Jack Russo to the stand.
Jack Russo.